Peace to the family. I'm laughing. I'm laughing because of the subject matter that I'm going to deal with in this short video, and I promise not to tarry long. And generally, when I say that, that means that I'm going to tarry long, but I promise it won't be that long this time. I'm dealing with attention spans and viewer duration in this. I want people to get what I have to give them and give it to them quickly. But anyways, today I want to talk about Pope Leo XIV, the former Bishop Robert Francis Prevost. And as the cat is already out of the bag, everyone knows that this man was elected Pope on May the 8th, 2025. He ascended to the name Pope Leo XIV. Leo because of workers' rights. Chicago, he came up in Chicago, and Chicago is a big union town, so I could see why he was involved in labor organizations, right? And labor organization is really fundamental what's going on in the United States today. If you go back to the Doge purges by the chief executive, or a chief executive office holder, and his friend Elon Musk. So we'll deal with that a little bit later. But I'm talking about passing today. In the 1900s, Robert Francis Prevost, his family tree goes back to New Orleans, Louisiana, the 7th Ward, right? And one of his maternal ancestors, his maternal grandfather, Joseph Martinez, was listed as being a immigrant from Santo Domingue. I don't know, but I've heard conflicting stories whether he was from the Haitian side or the Dominican side of the island, which would kind of that kind of swarthy look, that olive hue that you can kind of detect in Pope Leo. It goes back to that African root, that Creole root. But 1900 census, they identified as black. But during that time, in the 1920s, they migrated to Chicago, and then they started to identify as white. This phenomenon in the United States is known as passing. And I think for the most part, a lot of African Americans can go back in their families, and the story is similar about passing. You know, there's somebody that's gonna pass in your family, right? I remember my father's side, my father telling me that it was his father's father, uncle, that was very light-skinned and looked white, right? And I remember visiting this elderly man, and yeah, he did look white. He could have passed, right? And same thing on my mother's side. There's a lady that came to visit my grandfather, and a woman said to what would have been his aunt, "Why are you talking to those pickaninnies?" or whatever. And the lady responded that those pickaninnies were her nieces and her nephews, right? Okay. Nevertheless, the phenomena of passing is even prevalent in African American literature. Okay, there's William Wells Brown book, which was considered the first novel in the United States. We know very well that Phyllis Wheatley wrote poetry, right? But William Wells Brown is credited with the first novel written by an African American, which is named Clotel. And Clotel, or it was called The President's Daughter, which is a story about the daughters of Thomas Jefferson and his handmaiden Sally Hemings, right? And even today, the Monticello Foundation in Virginia, there was a meeting of the minds between the white descendants of Thomas Jefferson and those black descendants of Thomas Jefferson, from him and his handmaiden Sally Hemings, right? I remember when I was young, we used to see this in Ebony magazine. It's been documented on 60 Minutes as well. Okay. And the autobiography of an ex-colored man by James Weldon Johnson. James Weldon Johnson would also be he also penned what would become the quote-unquote Negro National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. William Wells Brown, one of his homes is located across the street from Fisk University, and on the right it's adjacent to Meharry Medical College. And if you go to Meharry Medical College and Fisk University, you will see a lot of these people that we call light, bright, and almost white. You know what I'm saying? I remember as a young man, one of my friends, his mother was an alumna of Fisk University, a Fiskite. And he talked about that brown paper bag test, which was prevalent among HBCUs, some HBCUs, Spelman College, Morehouse College, Dillard and Xavier University, Fisk University, just to name a few, where admission, and sometimes a prerequisite of admission was that a person was not as dark as a brown paper bag. I know the younger generation might not ever have seen a brown paper bag, but when I was coming up, grocery bags were made of paper and they were brown, light brown, you know. So they had this paper bag test, right? And so with the admission to a lot of Black Greek letter organizations, these powerful groups that control a lot of the history and culture and the movements in the African American community or the black community, right? You have several prominent black leaders, you know, that are mulatto by birth, will be typified as mulatto. Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, and there's just so many. There's so many to name. You do further research for yourself. But back to Pope Leo. Leo is denying that he identifies as a person of color, which was the ultimate goal of passing. You know, it was, the Catholic Church is full of secrets, right? And so is the black community. So ultimately, no, he would never admit to that. You know, the data in the census material shows that he black, you know? So, it brings me back. You know, a lot of people say, well, Pope Francis created this scenario because basically the Catholic Church is basically dying in Europe. You know, and the strongholds of Roman Catholicism are in South America and Africa, right? The growth rate of the Catholic Church in the Americas is 0.9%, right? So we would have, and most of the world's Catholics by baptism live in South America, right? So it would have just been logical that we would have had a pope coming out of South America, right? But the highest growing rate of Catholicism is in Africa, and we're talking about 3.31% growth in Africa. And to be honest, the world's largest Catholic church is not St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, but it's Our Lady of Peace in Yamoussoukro, Cote d'Ivoire, built by the late President Felix Houphouët-Boigny, who was a Catholic, member of a tribe called the Baoulé. And to be honest, Our Lady of Peace of Yamoussoukro, I think he built it a little bit spatially larger and a little bit in terms of height larger. And I think that the Catholic Church don't like this, so I think that's probably why they didn't have an African Pope, because Felix Houphouët-Boigny, he basically upstaged the Catholic Church by building this church in Yamoussoukro. And there's also a crocodile pool, an ancient crocodile pool, which is a throwback to traditional African beliefs. And if you see some pictures of an ancient Jesus, you see Jesus standing on top of a crocodile, right? But anyways, I done talked a little bit long on this. I just had to get this out because it's been in the atmosphere. A lot of people have been talking about it. I talked about it first, though. After the death of Francis, I said, African Pope, I said, just asking for a friend. And then after they elected him, I said, oh, is the Pope colored? Just asking for a friend. And it's basically come out. And for me, it is if Pope Leo XIV, if he works to renounce the misdoings of the Catholic Church in regards to the transatlantic slave trade, and if he deals with reparations for African American people, if he deals with reparations for Haiti, if he deals with reparations for other people of color that have been affected by the misdoings of the Catholic Church, and he doesn't promote white supremacy, I'm with it. But other than that, it's not my fight. I don't have a dog in the fight. All right, with that, I say peace.